Hello everybody. Let's talk a little bit about the brain science behind habit change. If any of us have ever set a goal and not achieved it, we've often felt that became the case because of self-sabotage, the fact that we're weak, or that we have no willpower. In fact, it's much more complicated than that, but yet once we know about it, we are able to affect change a lot better. Let's have a look at self-sabotage, for example. That is absolutely not a real thing. Why would you sabotage yourself on something that you really wanted to do? Let's just say that it was clean eating. Would you walk by the bakery, smell the donuts, actually say to yourself, you know what, I know I wanted to make a change and not eat sugar, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ruin everything that I've already accomplished this week? Of course not, we wouldn't do that. So that has got to be something that is more reactive than responsive. Weakness, it's exactly the same thing. You think that you sabotage yourself, you give in, you're weak, you're worthless, it's not going to work. That's also something that's not really true or even very real. No willpower, it all ties in, you see. You think that you want to achieve this thing. You try to achieve this thing, and for whatever reason you find yourself right back where you started, or oftentimes even worse. Here's what's happening. In very simple terms, this is our brain. The brain is in two parts. There's the lizard brain or animal brain, which we had a lot more of and used a lot more of a long time ago in our development. And then outside of it is the human brain, the part of our brain where we actually think rationally. So, very simply, the lizard brain is there for survival. The human brain is there for us to thrive. What happens when we feel any kind of a threat? The survival brain takes over, nothing's going on here in the thrive brain, and we just act. A good example of that is if you're walking along and suddenly something jumps out at you, you don't turn to it and say, I wonder what that is. Okay, it's got fur, teeth, sort of a leathery snout. It's a dog. By the time we did that, if that dog was attacking us, we'd be in big trouble. So what do? We jump out of the way, right away and instinctively. That is what the lizard or animal brain is doing to help us survive. Now, if we have a goal that we want to achieve, and achieving that goal is going to mean making some significant habit changes, it scares us. That's stress. A threat and stress are both dealt with by your brain in exactly the same way. So through a cascade of hormones, the survive part of your brain is triggered. So let's just say that you decide you want to lose weight. So there are a number of things that you're going to have to do to make that happen. Of course, those things are going to be difficult because you may be relying on food as a way to make you feel better. So what happens? You come home from work, you're feeling stressed out, you had a bad day. Your brain just wants to help you. It wants to make you feel good. So what happens when you're under that stress is you completely forget about that thing that you had planned to do, because that's here in the human brain or the thrive part of your brain. What happens is the survival mode takes over and says, what's going to make me feel good right now? And what makes you feel good right now is eating a bunch of sugary stuff, because temporarily that's going to make you feel better since that's your coping mechanism. So what we have to do is try to spend more time living in the thrive part of our brain. Now I do say more time, because this is not some kind of solution to solve all of our problems. This is just a way to ensure that every day, as best we can, we become a little bit better and we make a bit more of an improvement. And all we're really trying to do here is, if our life is a pie chart and this much of it is happy and this much of it we're not happy with, all we really want to try and do is just carry on adding more and more and more to the happy, little slice by little slice, until hopefully we have more contentment and less things for us to worry about. Because we need some stuff to worry about, otherwise everything would be perfect. We'd be sitting on a lotus flower, looking around, wishing we had some problems. Now, how do we get into that thrive brain? There are three things we can do that will help us come out of that survival part of our brain and spend more time in the thrive part of our brain. The first one is a mantra. A mantra is just simply a phrase or a sentence that you say over and over and over again to lay itself over a previously held negative belief. So we all have stories that we tell ourselves, these stories that oftentimes end up in a stress or a fear response that take us into the survival brain and just do those things that we know that we are able to use to cope, even though they are negative. What a mantra does is it allows you to repeat a different story purposefully over and over again. And doing that purposefully will overlay that over the old story eventually. It's not necessarily going to completely get rid of it, but it's going to make it a lot better than it was before. And with time and effort, you will find that it works very well. Another thing we can do is just practice mindfulness. Now, meditation is, of course, the sort of most recognized way to do it, but there are many, many ways that you can practice mindfulness. One that I found very helpful was talking yourself through some situations sometimes. So what I used to do is when I was getting out of my car, I found that I was pressing the clicker a bunch of times to lock it because for some reason I couldn't remember if I'd already locked it, which only happened seconds before. So what I did was, every time I got out of the car, I said to myself, I'm getting out of the car. I'm closing the door. I'm putting my bag on. I've got my keys in my hand. I'm walking towards the front door of my building. I'm locking the car. I'm opening the door. And so on and so forth, all the way up to my apartment. I didn't walk around doing that all day, but eventually that type of purposeful mindfulness will allow you to be more mindful in general. And of course, I highly recommend meditation. I will put a link in the email that I'm sending this with to a really great, about 9-minute long guided meditation that teaches you how to meditate. Finally, there's something that I call the number. I'm sure I did not invent this, but it's a way to keep something that you want to change fresh in your mind. So what I do is, on the first day of trying to keep this new habit, I write the number 1 on my dominant hand. If I've kept the habit that day, then the next day I write a 2, and so on and so forth. If I miss a day, or I don't do so well, I go back to 1. So as long as you're searingly self-honest, a method like this can work for you as well. Very simple. You can come up with any iteration of that you want, but just make sure that it's something that you're going to be able to notice often throughout the day. Try these, and if you have any further questions or you want some additional literature or video links, please send me an email and I'd be more than happy to help.